Lagos, the nation's commercial capital. This is the news at 10, live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight.
Hello and welcome. I am Nnamdi Azikiwe. Tonight, sub-regional leaders meet in Abuja tomorrow to discuss political future and security amongst ECOWAS states. Warring groups in Nasarawa State agree to embrace peace, ending over 2 months of ethnic clashes. Human rights activists seek improved laws to curb gender-based violence in Nigeria. And at least 129 bodies recovered from a capsized ferry in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Thank you for joining us. We begin tonight with efforts by the regional heads of state and government to strengthen security amongst ECOWAS countries. The renewed effort follows recent upsurge in insurgency in the region. Heads of state and government of countries under ECOWAS are to meet in Abuja, Nigeria's capital city, tomorrow to deliberate on the current political and security situations in the sub-region. Nigeria's President, Dr. Goodluck Jonathan, will host the summit, and areas to be discussed are briefing the leaders on recent developments in Burkina Faso, adoption of the report of the 73rd Ordinary Session of the ECOWAS Council of Ministers, the election of the chairman of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government for next year. Now, President Jonathan, the current chairman of the ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government, President John Mahama of Ghana, the chairperson of the African Union Commission, Dr. Ngogazana Dlamini Zuma, and United Nations Secretary General's representative in Africa, Mohammed Ibn Chambers, will be present at the one-day summit. Nasarawa State in north-central Nigeria appears to be having a new lease of life after a series of violent clashes amongst its various ethnic groups last month. According to the governor, Al-makura, the newfound peace being enjoyed across the state is as a result of what he describes as a homegrown peace mechanism. Traditional rulers, security agencies, and individuals who desired peace in the state were involved in the wide consultations and peace meetings brokered by the state government. From Lafia, the state capital in Nasarawa Southern Senatorial District, to Nasarawa in the north and Kefi in the western zone, indigents now live peacefully amongst themselves.
In the aftermath of the bloody clashes, Governor Tanko Al-makura, accompanied by his security detail, inspects the scenes of destruction. He promised to apply a unique solution to the crisis.
Taking each ethnic nationality one after the other, discussing intimately and most intrinsically the issues militating against their return and what they consider to be their most critical in worries with regard to security. But we have done that before. When the team and the Fulanis had this problem, we discovered a homegrown mechanism for conflict resolution. Gone were the days where you bring all warring factions and start debating and brainstorming, and it becomes a jamboree.
Gradually, peace is returning to Nasarawa State, with security officials enforcing it in the state capital, Lafia. But Governor Al-makura's homegrown peace initiative requires the collaboration of traditional rulers of the Egon, Alago, the Fulani, and Gwandara.
We will also, sooner or later, call on each and every one of us, be he a Muslim or a Christian, to embark on fervent prayers so that God Almighty will come to the rescue of the state for us, the lasting peace and coexistence.
However, the People's Democratic Party in Nasarawa remains skeptical and calls for a tougher approach.
We urge the federal government to therefore act quickly to stop the gradual spread of terrorism in Nasarawa State, which will affect the security of the states in the entire North Central and the federal capital in due course. Therefore, calling for the declaration of state of emergency in Nasarawa State will not be out of place.
While talking of emergency in Nasarawa State, we have done nothing to warrant such a decision. So those calling for emergency for Nasarawa State are unpatriotic citizens.
And while some politicians and traditional institutions differ over the governor's approach, he reaffirms his commitment to sustaining peace in the state.
Security is our priority, because any government that does not provide adequate security for its citizens has no business being in the business.
In the run-up to the 2015 elections, the last thing Nasarawa State needs at this point is violence. And for the sake of sustainable development for the people, it becomes imperative to keep the peace. Charles Aruka for Channels Television News.
Staying with security, the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Kenneth Minima, has attributed the major breakthrough in the recovery of some communities held by insurgents in the northeast to the resilience of troops and the determination by the armed forces to restore peace in the region. The Chief of Army Staff made the remarks at the commissioning of kennels for military rural dogs in Abuja. He reaffirmed the commitment of the military to restore law and order in the region. He said the Army has continued to restructure and review its strategies to tackle the menace of terrorism in the country.
These dogs are not pets, they are trained working dogs by the Nigerian Army. According to the Chief of Army Staff, contemporary security challenges has made it imperative that beyond human personnel and weapons, some aspects of tackling insurgency and war need to be deployed. According to him, the presence of more than 20 military working dogs deployed to the northeast has proven beneficial to the operations.
We are more of war dog status. In the past, we had either investigative dogs. I don't know if I'm right to use some terminology. They were not narcotics and all those type of things. Then too, IEDs were not there, so the dogs were also not trained to explosive devices and detect explosive whatever. But with the resuscitation, the dogs were now trained for all general duties that have to do with prevalent internal security challenges and for war purposes, as it is now. Presently, there are over 20 military working dogs deployed in the Northeast Theater. The injection of these dogs in Hotel Zaman Lafia have yielded great dividends, and we are all witnesses to that.
Besides the dogs, the Chief of Army Staff attributed recent successes in retrieving seized territories from the insurgents to the resolve of the Army to flush out the insurgents in the shortest possible time.
We are continuing on our tempo and momentum on the war in insurgency. We will deliver.
Since the reestablishment of the unit, the Nigerian Army has more than 200 working dogs. Some of these dogs, which by the way range between the ranks of privates and lance corporal, displayed some of their skills. Al-makura, Channels Television News.
Very handy dogs. Now, for Nigeria to win the war against the Boko Haram insurgency in the northeast, the nation's soldiers and personnel of other security forces must continuously undergo training to enable them tackle the current security challenges. These recommendations were made by the General Officer commanding 1 Division, Nigerian Army, Major General Kenneth Osuji, during his speech at the graduation ceremony of Basic Infantry Course and Skills of Arms Officers and Men at the 1 Division Training School, Ribadu Military Cantonment, Kaduna, Northwest Nigeria. The GOC, while addressing the graduating officers and soldiers, emphasized that the increasing attacks by the Boko Haram insurgents requires a continuous physical and mental training for them to be able to win the war against terror and restore peace in the country.
The Nigerian Army requires well-trained and competent hands to confront the security challenges in the country. The spate of terrorist attacks in the country calls for proactive measures to be in place by all. The need for troops to be prepared both physically and mentally cannot be overemphasized. Thus, There is no amount of training which seeks to combat the rising level of threats confronting our nation, Nigeria, that can be said to be too much. Having achieved the prerequisites training, the Nigerian Army now counts on you to overcome the challenges and restore peace to the entire country. You must take your duties more seriously now than ever before, as you exhibit very high sense of professionalism in your assigned tasks. At this juncture, I wish to sincerely commend the efforts of the Divisional Training Officer, instructors and entire staff of one Division Training School. I applaud you all for a job well done and for the innovations you have injected into training. The Nigerian Army is currently on the wheels of transformation, and we cannot therefore afford to be left behind.
Former governor of the state, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, has been extolling the virtues, that is Old Anambra State, I beg your pardon, has been extolling the virtues of Nigeria's first president, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe. The former governor made the remarks in Abuja at a lecture in honor of Nigeria's first president, Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, with the theme, Zik Ideology, Political Unity, a Solution to the Present Security Challenges. According to him, Nigeria's problems will remain unsolved unless all the different ethnic groups resolve to see themselves as first and foremost Nigerians.
When it comes, Zik was not ordinary. That's why he was called Zik of Africa. He was looking for a Nigeria which will be competing in the community of, not a Nigeria where Yoruba, Igbo, Hausa, and others will be fighting. We were looking for a dynamic, united country which will give hope to black man and wipe away this shame of slavery from the faces of all blacks.
In part 2, after the break, residents of a community in Cross River State cry out for help after living in total darkness for 1 year. Please stay with us.